Hey everyone, welcome back to another video from a Man Talks NRL SuperCoach. In today's video, we are going through the roundup number 12 of round 12, another action-packed round just on the cusp of State of Origin. I'm recording on Sunday night and I'm hoping for some news and confirmed New South Wales teams. We've heard a little bit of news about guys who are going to make their debuts, but if I do get further news of the team before I finish editing the video, I will talk about that in this video as well. Otherwise, we'll just go through the games as per usual, and if you guys enjoy it, as always, would really appreciate a thumbs up on the video, and do please consider subscribing to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. The scores that I'll be going through, not all the games have yet been updated, so some of the scores will be final update, but some still will be the first count. I'm currently sitting on 1,188. Wasn't a great week. A Captain Cleary who didn't really go off as big as everyone was hoping for and expected, and I had a few dud scores as well thrown in there too. Some late withdrawals like Josh Schuster didn't also help, but yeah, so crawled my way to a 1,188. Hopefully I can update to around 1,200 plus, which is probably looking around par for this week. So again, just another week where I'm just not able to make any real ground and started to slip in the rankings, which isn't ideal. But let's get into the video. So I've just finished the game by game breakdown and we've just got the New South Wales team, so I thought I'd just go through it as well, and all the kind of origin and non-origin player that I spoke about in the rest of the video obviously will be a little bit different now that we've got the official New South Wales team for game 1, and I think Queensland are due to give theirs out tomorrow on the Monday, that is. So for the Blues, I think there's not too many surprises overall. I think most of the surprises are going to be in the forwards. I think in the back line is probably what a lot of people are going to be expecting. So in terms of the back line, we've got James Tedesco at fullback, Brian To'o. I think that kind of news came out earlier today that he's going to be playing on the wing. Latrell Mitchell and Tom Trbojevic are going to be the centres, and Josh Adokar is going to be the other winger. I believe Josh Adokar is probably going to be shifted to the left side alongside Latrell to kind of counteract Xavier Coates, because that was a big discussion point about Brian To'o coming into the side. That his height might not be a good advantage against Xavier Coates, well, it would be a disadvantage. So it looks like Tom Trbojevic and To'o are going to be playing on the right side. God, that's a nice SuperCoach combination, isn't it? Jerome Luai has won the 5'8" spot, which I think a lot of people were probably predicting coming into this, given his club form, although for SuperCoach the past few weeks hasn't been good. So yeah, To'o and Luai definitely big outs in terms of out in round 13 playing numbers for SuperCoach, and Nathan Cleary the halfback, there's no questions about that really. Yeah, in terms of the forwards, I think is where we're going to see a little bit of change, and probably a little bit more SuperCoach relevance in terms of who's in and who's out. So Daniel Safidi, Damien Cook, and Jake Trbojevic are the forwards in the front row. So Damien Cook, obviously at hookers, make complete sense. Trbojevic and Safidi, Safidi has played really, really well for New South Wales so far and had a good game against the Sea Eagles today. Trbojevic at prop is actually a little bit very, very interesting. I think they really probably wanted to just get him into the team somewhere, given his previous Origin experience, but I don't think you could really have justified him playing out lock instead of say like Isaiah Yeo, Cam Murray, for example. So I think that's why they've probably put him at prop, and maybe potentially some of that is also the injuries to Payne Haas, for example. So yeah, some interesting choice there with Jake Trbojevic at the prop there. In the back row, we've got Cam Murray playing on the edge along with Tarek Sims. Again, a bit of a surprise there. I think definitely part of that is with Frizzell, getting injured in the Sea Eagles game today. I think that's really played a part in why Tarek Sims has been named in the starting edge for New South Wales. And Isaiah Yeo has been named at starting lock, which I think makes sense given his club combination with Luai and Cleary. Hopefully that does help the Blues. So yeah, real no surprise I think to see him playing at the starting for the lock role for New South Wales. Jack Whiten gets the he gets the number 14 utility role, and I think it kind of came out today that Luai and Whiten were both in the camp, and it just depended on who was going to be the 14, who was going to be the 6, and it makes sense probably in my opinion to have Whiten be the 14. He's probably a little bit more versatile than Luai, bit of a bigger body. You could probably put him anywhere in the back line, maybe even play a little bit in the forwards, for example. He's that big, so Whiten at 14 makes sense to me as to why he's not the starting 5'8", and that they've gone with Luai instead in that position. We've got two bench props in Junior Paulo and Payne Haas. No real surprises there in my opinion. And Liam Martin coming into the 17, I think is a bit of, not really a surprise, but he's probably in given all the injuries. I think, if we had like Victor Radley, Angus Crichton, Frizzell, I don't think Liam Martin probably would have made the side. But yeah, he's been named on the bench, and I think he'll do a job for New South Wales. Api Coruscant is the 18th man for New South Wales. Really big. I think there's a lot of consideration about the 18th man, given the concern about Matt Burton potentially filling that role, or like a Clint Gutherson. So given that they're not the 18th man, that really clears a path for them to play in round 13, which is really great news for anyone who's held on to either of those guys or brought in like a Matt Burton this week. So Gutherson probably going to be the best round 13 playing fullback option now. So I'm really glad that I've got him in the team. Obviously lost a lot of points not getting Turbo in that time, but Gutho not being in the New South Wales 19 doesn't surprise me at all, to be honest, but I think there was some risk of him being the 18th man. And Campbell Graham is the 19th man as well, as a second kind of backup reserve. So that's the New South Wales team. I think to an extent it's more or less kind of standard to what I think a lot of people were expecting. I think Brian To'o and Luai not being available in round 13 for SuperCoach purposes. To'o is so highly owned, I don't think it's going to really make a big difference. Luai a bit less so, but I think he would have had a lot of new owners in the past 2 weeks with Cam Munster being injured. So again, I don't really think these are two big surprises. I think some notable exclusions who I think will be a player available for us in round 13 is like a Tafita Pangai Jr. He'll be available for us, which is really useful. Ryan Madison, although pending a potential suspension for him, he might, if he gets off, he'll be playing in round 13. So that's really beneficial, as well as Clint Gutherson will be playing in round 13. So that's really helpful. Those are the kind of key guys that I can think of off the top of my head who there were some question marks over. But overall, I think the New South Wales Blues team is not very surprising. And we'll be very keen to see what the Queensland lineup is tomorrow as well. As I mentioned, there'll be a lot of players who I discuss in the rest of the video regarding Origin, and the information might not be so accurate as I recorded that prior to the actual team being released. So the first game of the round was the Brisbane Broncos taking on the Melbourne Storm, and the game kind of petered out, I think, the way that most people were going to be expecting. Melbourne Storm taking this one very comfortably, 40 points to 12, and the star of the show for the Storm here was the Nicho Hynes and Brandon Smith. Now, Nicho Hynes, I put the vice captain on him, and I'm really upset, obviously, now in retrospect, that I didn't do the vice captain loophole on him. Was really kind of umming and ahhing about the decision, and in the end, I decided that with the captaincy rate of Cleary being so high and against a prime opposition in the Bulldogs, I felt it would be more impactful if I say looped Hynes and Cleary went well, versus say if Cleary didn't do so well and I had the captaincy on him, because he would be, he was more popular in terms of his captaincy percentage. So I kind of just wanted to hedge it a little bit. So I decided not to go with the vice captain loophole, but obviously in retrospect, that probably would have been the right decision. He had an amazing game, scoring 156, having a hand in a few tries, scoring a try of his own. And Brandon Smith had a great game, scoring 110. He scored that really early try, also led on a try, I think, for Nelson Asofa-Solomona, if I remember correctly. So he had a really big game, and coming off last week's good performance as well, he rewarded a lot of his new owners, and they'll be very ecstatic, with a 110-point effort against the Broncos, and a nice few run of games coming up against the Titans in round 13, who again leaked a lot of points today as well. So any of these Storm players that you own, like a Nicho Hynes, Brandon Smith, look like great acquisitions. Even George Jennings coming over with a 73. He did, get a bit of an easy try, just kind of picking up the scraps of the Broncos. They just kind of left the ball there and he picked it up and ran all the way to the try line. But a 73 from him. He's actually had a few pretty good scores, and actually probably is worth considering as well if you are looking at round 13 buy coverage. And Jerome Hughes with the 65, he looked threatening, but he just didn't have kind of the end product in terms of try assists. He did have a line break towards the end of the game, which did boost up his score a little bit, but only coming out with 65, which isn't, it's still a decent score, but probably not what people are hoping for. Anyone who brought him in at his really high price. And Tui Kamikamiga also with a 60-point effort. Josh Adokar with a 57. He did score a try in this game as well. Cooper Johns, scoring a try on his debut, which really was, I'm sure we'll hear about that on the next Matty Johns family podcast. And they were the main performers out of the Melbourne Storm. Out of the Broncos, it was only really the forwards to speak of. Jake Turpin probably made a bunch of tackles on his way to a 69. Tavita Pangai, 62, just looked to offload as much as he could. I think he finished the game with about 7 to 8 offloads. It was crazy. Obviously, I expect a lot of them weren't effective offloads. Half of them ended up on the floor. Kobe Hetherington with a 56. Milford just, he scored 47, but he was just passing like crap. I'll put it that way. His passing was really bad during the game. He did go to try assist for Jesse Arthurs at one point in the game as well. But yeah, only getting a 47. Tom Flegler, who I do have in my team, crawled his way to a 44. I had him a bit of a stopgap, to play in the round 13 and hopefully get me to 45 to 50. So I'm not kind of unexpected with that score, but obviously I probably would have preferred maybe a 55, and the minutes probably aren't quite what I was expecting as well. And Palacia with a 39, definitely is a cheapie to watch, and he coming off an 81 from last week. Let's see how the team was shape up for this week in the round 13 bye week. But those were probably the most notable performances out of this game. The Melbourne Storm just clicking into gear and again just continue their run of scoring at least 40 points against opposition. And with the game against the Titans next week in round 13, I think we can expect that trend to continue. So the first game of Friday was Cowboys taking the Warriors in what was again a thrilling game. Cowboys taking this one out 29 points to 28. The star of the show for the Cowboys was Val Holmes here, coming over with 100 just after getting 138 last week. I would expect him to be playing for Queensland instead of Origin, but he's definitely cemented himself now, I think, as a gun centre wing to get into our teams. The best time will probably be as soon as you can when he is playing. So maybe round 14, round 15, I think is a good time to get Val Holmes into the squad. I'm not sure what the Cowboys draw is in that little period, but the way that he's going, even in tougher opposition games, he's still coming over with like 50s and 60s because he has got that goal kicking benefit, and the Cowboys have shown that ability to score quite a few points as well. So I think Val Holmes is looking definitely like a gun centre wing to go for. And let's just talk about that field goal that he hit at the end of the game. It's been a long time since I've seen a field goal struck that well. He kicked it from like around the 40-meter line, and it was just soaring. It was going up as it passed the goalpost. It was incredible. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow also scored that winning try as well. He scored the try to get the Cowboys tied, getting a 71, and Reece Robson has actually been ticking along very well with a 68 here. Could be a potential consideration for a round 17 playing hooker. The options at the moment there aren't very good, given that Harry Grant's probably going to be playing Origin, and we're going to be losing all our guys like a Reid Marnie, Jaden Brayley, Connor Watson. Reece Robson could be the guy to fill in that position come round 17. And Jake Clifford with a 67, although it looks like he is now off to the Newcastle Knights. So he might flourish there as well. But again, he did pretty well. Definitely someone to monitor as well, I think, based on... I can't actually remember what he's priced at, but let's see how... I wouldn't probably advise just jumping on him just because he's moved to the Knights. The Cowboys overall are probably going better than the Knights as it is. Scott Drinkwater as well has been ticking along, coming over the 62, and those are probably the best performers out of the Cowboys. On the Warriors side of things, Reece Walsh again had a great game, scoring in 83. He had that runaway try down the left side, and again had a try assist as well. So he's just looking the goods, and looking actually more and more like one of these gun fullbacks. And especially in round 17, the Warriors will be playing that round, and after round 14 when they're versus Storm, their draw is quite good. So I think Reece Walsh is actually definitely, I think, someone we should be seriously considering if you are looking to maximise your points, because we know that the fullback spot gives so many SuperCoach points, and I think with so many guys who are going to be missing around this period of time, with like your Tedesco, Pappenhausen still being out injured, Tom Trbojevic will be out on Origin duty, Gutherson we're not quite sure yet based on the news. I don't know the New South Wales team list yet. He might miss some time as well. So Reece Walsh, I think, is definitely a good consideration from round 14-15 and kicking into the round 17 bye week. Ewan Aiken as well had a good game here with a 90 because he did score a try. Marcelo Montoya as well with an 82. Wade Egan 76. Murdoch Masila again, he seems like he always is able to nab a try, coming over the 63 here. And Cody Nikorima and Tuvasashek pretty steady. Nikorima with a 61 and Tuvasashek with a 60. Tohu Harris had his lowest game of the season with a 58, just showing how consistent he is. 58 as his lowest score of the season, you would happily take that. And I think he's definitely looking like probably a prime candidate in round 14 and 15. In this 58, I can't remember quite what his break-even was, but you might see his price drop a little bit, so he could be a decent pickup then in round 14-15 for a little bit of a cheaper price, and you can lock him in into your side for the rest of the season. And those are the most notable players, I think, to talk about this game. It was a really great game to watch, full of points, full of excitement as well. I can't believe Harris Tavita missed that field goal at the end of the game. They used up all of their tackles in the set, and it was right in front, only 20 meters out, and he misses it to the left. And then Holmes just steps up and says, "Let me show you how to take a field goal," and absolutely nails it. It was a great game to watch as a neutral supporter. So the second game on the Friday was the West Tigers taking on the Dragons, and the Tigers taking this one out pretty comfortably in the end, 34 points to 18. The Dragons did score some late tries, which probably reflects the scoreline on them a little bit better, but really it was the Tigers' show the whole time. On the Dragon side, I think, Corey Norman and Ben Hunt were the best performers. Norman with 107, which is a big score, but I will note that a lot of that was kind of like these late junk time tries. He had a try assist for Ben Hunt, and that really did bump up his score, and Ben Hunt scored a try to get to an 83. Jackson Ford is actually looking pretty decent. He scored a 67 and he scored a 60 last week. I think it looks like Tariq Sims is actually potentially going to be in the New South Wales Origin squad, given the lack of back row options based on suspensions and injuries that New South Wales is currently facing. So Tariq Sims with the 66, that potentially might even open up more minutes again in the back row and the middle for the Dragons. So I think Jackson Ford, I can't actually remember where he played in this game, whether it was in the middle or the edge. Someone in the comments below, if you want to help me out, that'd be really appreciated. But coming off a 60 and a 67, he will play round 13. Probably not an amazing pick, but he might be, if he can lock down some extra minutes and get his way to like 60 to 65 a week, he could be a handy play in the second row forward. And Jared Beale coming back, I didn't note him in my team this Tuesday, but coming back after such a long time and back into the NRL, he slotted straight into the Dragons team and scored a 60, which is handy enough as it is. And those are the guys who performed over 60. Andrew McCullough for the 57, I'm going to guess about 45 to 50 of that is basically just tackles. That's really all he does so far. Although he did have a couple of nice kicks as well. On the Tigers side of things, Dane Laurie was the star of the show for them, scoring a try and having a hand in a couple as well, coming away with 117. So he's shown to have a really, really high ceiling. Obviously playing out of fullback, they definitely do benefit out of those sweeping plays. So 117, obviously, if you've held him to this point, you're not going to get rid of him next week when he plays in the round 13 bye week. The draw for the Tigers is really, really tough though. They've got the Panthers next week in round 13, although it will be an understrength Panthers team. And then I think they've got, I can't remember in any particular order, but it's like Melbourne, Souths, and then Eels, I think, up until round 17 where they bye. So definitely, worthwhile considering whether you sell Laurie or not, to capitalize on the best draw for other players, like potentially a Laurie to a Val Holmes. The way I see it though, in this tough games, Laurie, he has shown the ability to still score pretty decent. I think it's not a bad idea to just hold him in your, not in your 17, don't play him on the mat based on those matchups. But just keep him in your reserve center wing, and play on the matchups when the games do get a bit better. So I think he's shown an ability to average pretty well, and I don't think there's any need to kind of force him out of the team. I think he's shown that he can get these good points even maybe in tough games as well. Tommy Talau in this game also had a couple of try assists of his own as well on his way to a big 96. Adam Dewey had a great game playing at centre actually, coming over with an 83. He did have a try assist to James Roberts, and he also had a bunch of points in goal kicking, given the Tigers put on 34 points. So he helped himself to 83, which is a really great game after a 45 last week. So definitely good for anyone who's still held him to this point as well. And I'd maybe argue a similar thing with Dane Laurie in terms of Dewey. Maybe he might not be the best hold in these tougher games, but I think he's shown it enough. I think even up until this point early in the season, in tough games for the Tigers, he was still scoring around the 50, 60, and he had that capability to go at 80, although that was playing at 5'8", so that is a little bit different. Definitely something to keep in mind though, whether you're going to hold or sell with this tough games coming up. And James Roberts with an 82, scored a double, probably doing what everyone was hoping for when everyone had him in their starting team. Playing on the wing actually looked like he maybe was able to obviously get on the end of a couple of tries, and that new haircut of his might have helped. Luciano Leilua had a great game with a 75, and looking damaging as he always does. And Nofaluma with a 60, that did include a try. His base definitely does look like it's a bit down, because I think we were seeing last year, if he was scoring a try, Nofaluma was probably cracking the 70 to 75. So his base does look a little bit down, but again, a 60, I'll take that in my center wing. And I guess the other only kind of player to note is maybe a Sean Bloor coming with a 23. He's not proven yet to be the kind of genuine cash cow option. Obviously, if you've got him in your team, you hold him for round 13, and hopefully he gives you maybe a 25 to 30 points. But wouldn't be looking to rush him into the team anytime soon, unless we see him getting a little bit more minutes, as he's currently still coming off the bench for the Tigers. So the first game on Super Saturday was the Panthers taking on the Bulldogs, with the Panthers taking this one out pretty comfortably, 30 points to 4, although I think many people like myself were probably hoping for the Panthers to put on maybe 50, because a lot of people would have had captain Nathan Cleary, and he came away with an 80 with some suspect try assist attacking points in here. This is all pre-updates as well, so we'll see if whether he loses that any updates down, although we have seen Cleary to be a bit of a unicorn when it comes to the SuperCoach points. But yeah, so 80 as captain, we'll touch on the Manly game. I think a lot of people, in retrospect, an 80, you'd probably take that this week, but in any given week, we're hoping for 100, 120 plus, I think, from our captain, so the 80 is a little bit underwhelming from Cleary, but if that's his floor, obviously you really would, you're really comfortable with that. Charlie Staines, I didn't play him this week. In retrospect, obviously I probably would have played him, but scoring a double, coming over the 92, looking like a great, still a great money maker as well moving forward. And I think very, very easy. I don't play him in my 17, so I think if you don't play him in your 17, he's probably an easy enough sell, given that he's probably almost peaked in price. Definitely a good stepping stone to like a Val Holmes kind of center wing. Definitely probably the play that I'm going to be looking to do, given that he still has the capability to put on these big scores. And I think actually, I might backtrack just on what I just said. With easy games for the Panthers, if he is able to nab a try or a two, every other game, he'll probably hover around the same price and could be a handy play based on matchups. But the way that I've structured my center wing, I've made it so that I don't play Staines, but maybe that was the wrong way to do it. I don't know. Stephen Crichton as well was on the end of an amazing Panthers team try, scoring a 79 to finish the game. James Fisher-Harris again doing pretty solid as well in second row forward and front row forward with a 69. Definitely looking like one of the better front row forward options for round 13. And Matt Burton, who I did trade in actually for Sam Walker. I didn't put out a video on my trade this week. I was kind of, I wasn't at home essentially this whole weekend. But Matt Burton, I thought about it with Sam Walker being arrested for this week. I decided to bring in Matt Burton at least to get, Sam Walker's going to miss this week and next week. Matt Burton's going to play the next three, although this is pending any New South Wales Origin team, so famous last words if maybe he's named the 18th man. But I thought it'd be a good matchup against the Bulldogs, and he came away with the try contribution or try assist for that Stephen Crichton try. So come away with a 60, very handy, and I'll happily take that. And Brian To'o with the 56 again just doesn't seem to put in a bad shift. Always comes away with a pretty decent game, even if it's not scoring a try. At 56, I'd probably take that. Spencer Leniu with a 37 that did include a try, so again, good for any of us owners who are hoping to play him in round 13. Hopefully get some extra minutes, as you'd expect. Isaiah Yeo to go away with the New South Wales team, potentially Liam Martin as well. And then I guess the big disappointment here for the Panthers was Viliama Kikau only with a 32, and Jerome Luai I don't know what is going on here. Only a 17-point effort. I wasn't able to watch this whole game. I was only able to watch some extended highlights. So guys, let me know in the comments below if it's if you saw, was it a case of say Luai the balls just weren't going to the left side, for example, or maybe Cleary is just kind of dominating the ball a little bit more. And I think this is probably the concern a lot of people might have had to begin the season. With Penrith being so dominant and Cleary being so dominant, would Luai and Cleary take away each other's points? We saw at the start of the season both were able to get a lot of points. Luai was racking up try assists, Cleary would just rack up goal, some try assists of his own as well, and goal kick points. So both were doing really, really well. But we see now in the last kind of few weeks that Cleary is taken completely over, and Luai is just the one who's suffering. Only 17 points here, and I think this really stings. I think a lot of people would have traded like Cam Munster to Jerome Luai. I got on Jerome Luai a little bit earlier in the season. I didn't get his really, really big games where I think he scored like 128. I've had some serviceable games out of him, so I'm not as disappointed with the 17-point effort. But if you have done the kind of that recent trade, and he's really not done the business. I think he's been averaging like 23 over the last few weeks, which is not ideal at all. On the Bulldog side of things, we see Josh Jackson as a high scorer here with a 61, Luke Thompson with a 60. I don't actually quite know what the minutes were for this game. Definitely something I'll look into, and I'll probably touch on maybe in my next video as well. But I'll have a look and see what Thompson's minutes were and how he kind of performed with Josh Jackson and Jack Hetherington in the team. But a 60-point effort in a losing side, for a front row forward, probably you would take that. And the next best effort was from Adam Shoop, who got a 58. William Hopewadi with a 49. Again, just not too much to talk about here with the Bulldogs. I think from a SuperCoach point of view, I think Josh Jackson and Luke Thompson are probably your best bets. It's kind of just like guys who are going to play decent minutes and playing in the middle, just rack up a lot of tackles and run meters, and get their way to a 60 to 65-point average. So the second game on Super Saturday was the South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the Parramatta Eels, with the Rabbitohs blowing the Eels out of the park, winning this game 38 points to 20. Looking at the extended highlights of this one, again, it just looked like the left side of the Rabbitohs was clicking into full gear. I didn't watch all the full game, so I don't quite know, if this was just the impact of Cam Murray, but it definitely, it seems Cam Murray's back in the team and all of a sudden scoring a lot of points. So I don't know if that was the main reason why, or it just seemed like, the Eels weren't playing very good defense, probably a bit of a mix of both. Dan Gagai stole the show here in terms of SuperCoach with a massive 163. I think he scored a double and he had a few try assists as well. So a really, really big game from him. Alex Johnson as well scored a double, coming over with 146, so a big game. Or was it a hat trick? Actually, it might have been a hat trick for Johnson, sorry. So 146, again, just, he has these really, really high ceiling games. Damien Cook finally coming in with a big game. I'm not sure if anyone's still held him to this point. If they have, congrats. He's come away with a big 103, although you're probably going to be losing him from State of Origin now for the next couple of weeks. He did score a try. That I think he did have a try assist as well, throwing the line break as well. So a very, very big game from him. Cody Walker and 85, probably with a couple of try assists as well. Latrell, 77, again, similar deal. These are all the guys who are playing on the left, Latrell, Cody Walker, Alex Johnson, Gagai. So it just seemed like that side of the field was a field day for the Rabbitohs. And it doesn't surprise me because that's the Eels' right side, and that's got like Wonga Blake Ferguson. Wonga Blake, I just don't see why, the coach is persisting with him. I see on Twitter a lot of Eels fans are really, really not happy with Wonga Blake. He just seems to be, he's a black hole in attack. He doesn't seem to be passing the ball out to Ferguson, and then it seems like they leak a lot of points on his side. And I'll be very surprised if he continues in that starting role moving forward. Kolomatangi as well was a very good performer for the Rabbitohs, coming away with a 76, and those were the really big performances on the Rabbitohs side of things from a SuperCoach perspective. On the Eels side of things, again, not very much to speak of. They were completely outplayed in this game, really. Reid Marnie with a 54, probably from like maybe 50 tackles, I think. I'm just going to assume that he made a bunch of tackles. Ferguson actually had a decent game coming out of this pretty poor effort from the Eels with a 54. And Clint Gutherson with the 54, that did include the first try of the game, but again, it's just not showing quite the ceiling that we saw in the first couple of weeks when a lot of people like myself probably brought him in. So it's really been a hard watch in the past few weeks, especially owning Gutherson versus like a Tommy Turbo, who's been racking up tons for fun, and Gutherson has been chipping away with some 54s and like an 80 and a 90 every now and then, which is obviously not bad, but in the current SuperCoach climate, it's not quite enough out of your fullback. Isaiah Papali'i also with a 52, that did include a sin bin, but he did repay some of that back with a try as well. So again, he's happily just ticking along with some attacking stats. 52 obviously is not ideal, but given that he was sin binned, I'll happily take a 52. And no one else in the Eels side got about 50 points, which shows how outplayed they were this match. Micah Sevo scored a try on his way to a 49, Nathan Brown a 49 as well, Mitch Moses with a 46. So again, he's kind of not maybe doing the best option that we could have been for round 13 playing halfback. I think Jerome Hughes is probably definitely a better buy in that sense. And Ryan Madison, he also got a sin bin in this game, and I think there might potentially be some concerns over a potential suspension for him. The way that everything's going with sin bins and suspensions, wouldn't be surprised. I think he did hit the guy with his shoulder to the head. I only watched the replay once, so I don't quite remember if that was the case. So he only scored 40 points. So I'm definitely keen to see as well if he's suspended or if he gets named in the New South Wales team, because he's definitely someone you can lock in as a season-long keeper. But he has had a few down weeks, and someone like me who hasn't brought him into the team yet definitely means I can wait on him and maybe hopefully pick him up even cheaper than what he currently is. So the final game of Super Saturday was the Sydney Roosters taking on the Canberra Raiders, with the Roosters being very, very comfortable winners here, taking this one out 44 points to 16. The best performers out of the Roosters here was Tili Tupunua scoring a double on his way to an 86, Josh Morris with an 83, and Joey Manu filling in at 5'8 with the absence of Sam Walker. He did very well with an 80, that did include a try as well. Tedesco coming away with a 79, he did look very involved as well, but just didn't quite have the kind of high ceiling game, and especially in a game where, they scored 44 points to the Roosters, a bit of a low effort. Obviously, Tedesco did miss some time. He had a bit of a hip point to injury. Potentially that might have affected him for the rest of the game, but the 79, based on the kind of the week I think there was in SuperCoach, it wasn't a lot of really, really big scores from your real popular players. So I think 79 actually is probably a better game from him compared to some of the other guys. Joseph Suwali as well scored his first try in NRL, coming away with 79. Definitely is looking like a great kind of cheaper to go for. Obviously the Roosters bye this week, which is great, but if he's named again in round 14 or any other time down the line, he will be playing his third game at that point in time, so he's definitely looking like a great pickup, and hopefully should make a stack of cash. I'm already eyeing up like a Dave Fusatua move out to a Joseph Suwali to make a bit of money, and hopefully he'll be a decent cash cow if he gets some extended run of games, and hopefully in the State of Origin period that might be the case. Jared Waerea-Hargreaves as well with a 62 was a good performer for the Roosters, as well as Daniel Tupou with a 59. That did include a try. I am regretting kind of getting Ikuvalu instead of Tupou. The reason I didn't go for Tupou was that I thought he had potential shot at playing in the New South Wales team, and so I wanted to go for Ikuvalu, and I really liked the look of the Roosters' right side, so I went with Ikuvalu, but he didn't have a great game for SuperCoach, only 22 points, so that really does sting, and he hasn't really done a lot in the past couple of weeks as well. He did have a decent game the first week. I traded him in for 73, but I haven't quite seen the high ceiling game that I was hoping from him, and the Roosters' kind of run coming up after the Titans isn't the best. But we've got Suyosu Takiyaho as well with a 50, so he's been kind of chugging along with his 50 scores for the past few weeks. Selling him for Flegler, I did say he wasted trade, but Flegler's been coming over the 44, so really the points difference isn't that much. And I did create some money doing that trade. Got an extra round 13 playing number, although Flegler might play for Queensland apparently, so we'll see about that. But yeah, again, just kind of ticking along, and without the goal kicking, probably isn't looking like the front row forward keeper that we were hoping for. On the Raiders side of things, Josh Hodgson had a good game with a try, and I think a couple of try assists of his own as well, on his way to a 93. CHN, Corey Haruanara, he's actually proven me wrong. I'm happy to put my hand up on that. He's done really, really well in the past few weeks. Definitely is looking like he's locked down that 80-minute role on the edge for the Raiders. And he's putting out really, really good base. I think he scored about 60 points in base this game. Throw in some attacking stats in terms of, say, offloads, etc., and some tackle breaks, and he got his way to an 82. So he's definitely looking like a great kind of mid-range second row forward to go for. Congrats to anyone who got him on at 302k. I didn't want to take the risk, but I am more comfortable now, I think, getting him into the team. So he's definitely looked like a great play in the round 17 bye week with the Raiders will play. And the Raiders draw, actually, I think from round 14 is really, really nice. So we might see some extra attacking stats from Corey Haruanara. So I think he's looking like a great trading target from round 14 and 15 as well. If, say, for example, a Mitch Barnett to a Corey Haruanara could be a decent trade if you're kind of fed up with Barnett's minutes and his, his role in the current Knights team. So he looks like a great trading target, CHN, I think that is. And Corey Horsburgh with scoring a try here as well on his way to a 69. Those are the best performances out of the Raiders, given that they got pretty thoroughly beat in this instance. Ryan James, a bit of a mixed night. I think he got a sin bin, then he also scored a try. So he got on his way to a 48, which I'm glad to see. I didn't play him, but hopefully that 48, I think it might have been just a bit above his break even. So hopefully he'll go up a little bit in cash, but at the moment, he could just be a hold up until round 17. I don't even know, until I find a better opportunity potentially to sell. But apart from that, there wasn't really much else to talk about on the Raiders side of things. They got thoroughly beat by the Roosters in this game. So the first game on Sunday was the Cronulla Sharks taking on the Gold Coast Titans up in Coffs Harbour, and the Sharks won this game pretty comfortably, 38 points to 10. The Titans were able to get the early try through Brian Kelly, but again, he was on 20 points or something like that after the first 10 minutes, and he's finished on 30. I think he scored 10 points in the last in the whole 75 minutes. So really, really disappointing from him given the start that he had to this game. And overall, that was the Titans really in this match. They really just took their foot off the pedal after that early start getting the try, and the Sharks were just way too good for them, piling on the points. And the Titans' defense is definitely looking very, very leaky. So definitely a team to target, I think, for your attacking players. The best performer out of the Titans was Dave Fifita, making his return from his 2-week suspension. On his way to a 91, just showing his ridiculous floor. I think he had 15 tackle breaks according to the stats here, so we got 30 points just in tackle breaks, which is ridiculous. I think he got a line break assist as well on his way to a 91, so it's well below his break even of 150, I think it was, or 147. But again, just showing he's probably the hands down the best second row forward to go for. But now with this tricky Origin period coming up, I wouldn't be rushing him into the team. Hopefully he goes down in price, and we can see how he backs up, or if he backs up at all, from the State of Origin games. Mo Fotuaika also putting in a nice game, coming with a line break as well and some tackle breaks on his way to an 81. That's 2 good games back-to-back from him. Definitely a decent consideration moving forward, although I fully expect Fotuaika to be named in the Queensland Origin team. So definitely not a consideration, I think, for in the near term. But in the future, potentially he could be a decent front row forward proposition as well. Kevin Proctor scored a try at the end of the game for a 77, but I don't think he's going to be too heavily owned. And that was really it, I think, from the Titans side of things in terms of real good performances. Tino scored a 50 in this game, so a bit of a down game after his good game from last week. And he'll likely be playing State of Origin for the Queensland Maroons as well. And apart from that, we touched on Brian Kelly, with his 30-point effort. Jamal Fogarty with a 17, not great from him. AJ Brimson obviously got an injury in this game, so he was only able to score a 10. So that definitely does throw a spanner in the works as well for Queensland, based on how quickly he can recover from his injury. On the Sharks side of things, obviously a lot of good performances here, given that they scored 38 points. Jesse Raymond with a big 106. I've kind of touched on him previously as a decent pod, he scores pretty decent points in terms of his base attack. And the Sharks draw as well is really, really good from round 14. Definitely firming up a great trading target around that period of time. And he will play in the round 17 bye week. So if you're looking to, shore up your center wing, maybe if you're offloading, a Charlie Staines, a switch to a Jesse Raymond could be a decent move, with the Sharks draw being pretty decent from round 14 onwards from memory. Mulatalo scored a double here on his way to a big 94. Matt Moylan had a really good game as well with an 88. I don't know how long people might have been holding him for, but he's had a pretty decent fortnight in terms of SuperCoach points. Connor Tracy as well scoring a try on his way to a nice 83. Jack Williams scoring a try in the second row forward for a 76. Sean Johnson, who's pulling all the strings, only coming away with a 68. Definitely is very, very an enticing proposition, I think, at halfback and 5'8". Everyone knows the capability of him for SuperCoach points, given that he also goal kicks as well. I think he kicked 7 from 7 today. But 68 points is very, very handy. I definitely just want to see a consistent run of games because he has had that niggling, some niggling injuries as he's come back from his, major layoff. And I think I want to see him kind of really fit and firing before I want to get him into the team. But I think if you're looking to take a punt on him, there's worse players to punt on, I think, than Sean Johnson. And Blake Brayley also scored a try on his way to a 63. His brother, he outperforming his brother just a little bit in SuperCoach for this week. And the final game of the round was the Newcastle Knights taking on the Manly Sea Eagles, and the Knights winning this one in a bit of an upset, 18 points to 10. The Knights didn't have Kalen Ponga in this game, and the Sea Eagles have been firing in the past few weeks. So it was really a bit of an upset for the Knights to win this game. Dan Safidi was their best performer, scoring a 92. Just looked really, really busy with his workload, and also scored a really late try at the end of the game to seal the win for the Knights. So a really big game from him. Connor Watson is just proving to be an absolute gun, and like a real, a Mr. Fix-It for the Knights. Kurt Mann was a late out for the Knights in this game, so he filled in at 5'8", and I think he had to be out of the game for the last 10 to 15 minutes. So Connor Watson, slots in at fullback and just plugs any gap that the Knights have, and he came away with a massive 80 points here. He's just always very, very busy. He has decent base stats. Late on the try assist for NSW SOO, who scored a 62 points. So Connor Watson looking like a great consideration. Depends how long-term this injury is for Kurt Mann. I don't believe it was a very long-term injury. It's more of a short-term one. Connor Watson, though, is looking like a great hold for round 13, potentially even moving forward, because the options at hooker are pretty thin, and I've currently got him listed at that position. Obviously, his minutes is a concern as well. He definitely was, took the advantage, of playing at 5'8" in the starting lineup versus, coming off the bench for 40 minutes. I think this definitely helped Mitch Barnett as well, scoring his 60 points, definitely his best game in a few weeks, and he probably played some extra minutes here. Dave Clemmer had a good game with a 54. He had a lot of work rate in this game, but he did have a sin bin at the very, very end of the match, so that definitely did, knock 10 points off his output. And Tyson Frizzell had a decent game with a 52, although there is concern over his, he got an ankle injury at the end of the game. So definitely one to watch, especially as a New South Wales supporter. Obviously I want him in the team, and the back row spots for the New South Wales are looking a little bit slim at the moment. And Jaden Brayley, he wasn't looking all that great, but a 51 point effort, that did include a very, very late try assist and line break assist for Dan Safidi at the end of the game. I was happily going to take those 20 extra points of junk. He wasn't looking very good, which is surprising. You'd think that his game is predicated based on just making a lot of tackles, but the past few weeks has definitely been a bit down. But a 51, happily will take those junk points at the end of the game. And Bradman Best as well, no real attacking stats for him apart from like a line break assist on his way to a 51, definitely showing he's got that really high floor in terms of his base stats, so definitely good output from him. He's just not quite crashing over for the tries at this point in time. On the Sea Eagles side of things, the best performer for them was Lawton with an 83. Jake Dvorovich just going through a mountain of work as he always does on his way to a 58. Josh Schuster was a late out for the Sea Eagles as well, which I think has definitely burnt a lot of players as well. I fortunately was able to take the reserve off Josh Schuster and put it on Connor Watson, which really worked out for me because I wasn't going to actually reserve Connor Watson this week if Schuster was named, so that definitely saved me a little bit in that. Connor Watson performed really, really well, but I know a lot of people had to cop in an auto emergency score based on Schuster being a late out this game. Hopefully he's back for us in the next few weeks as well, or next few weeks. He won't play in round 13. I want him back in round 14 though as my 5'8 reserve. Marty Tapau as well with a 53. He had definitely got some interest, I think, at front row forward because he's had a few good games in the past month or so. He did get that sin bin as well, which the controversy side, we won't really go that much into it. That definitely did affect his scores a bit as well on his way to a 53. Ruben Garrick with a 47, probably not quite the high upside game that everyone was hoping for when they brought him into their team this week. If you went for Ruben Garrick, I think the whole game was a bit of an upset for Manly, and the way that Knights have been performing, I think a lot of people were hoping and predicting a big Manly win. And the biggest underperformer, I guess, out of this is Tom Trbojevic. As a non-owner, I'm very happy to see a 34. I was driving back home, checking my scores. Not driving, sorry. I don't condone looking at your phone. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I was looking at the score at halftime, and I saw he was on 7, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. You know, all these Tommy Turbo captainers, you know, finally they got that pain when I captained Tedesco when he scored 17 or something. But obviously we know how Tommy Turbo is. He can easily rack up the points in like 20 minutes. He might easily go on to like a 60-70 point game. Only finished with a 34. It didn't include a line break assist for Ruben Garrick, but overall fairly quiet game. You know, he can't be scoring tons every single game, surely not. So this was definitely a down game from him. Definitely would have been disappointing. I think a lot of people would have gone for that vice captain Nathan Cleary and captain Tommy Turbo play this week, and it just hasn't come off you, which is really unfortunate, only with a 34-point effort in this game. Jason Saab with a 42 though, you know, ticking along, scored another long range try, showing his speed in this game, but only a 42 for him. And Ben Travoy, which was probably the bane of any vice captain loopholers. You know, I was one of them. I had the opportunity to vice captain loophole Nico Hines from the Warriors game because I had Josh Curran and Dave Fusatua. But I decided, you know, I'll go with the Cleary one. But then I couldn't even make that decision later because it was the word was coming out that Ben Travoy, was actually going to make his debut on the bench. And I didn't really want to cop his auto emergency score, so I think it was going to be really low. I wasn't expecting him to play only that many minutes and only get a 5-point game, but coming off the bench, we're not quite sure how many minutes he was going to get, so I decided to knock over the loop. And probably, actually, to be honest, maybe with this, I haven't done the calculation, but with this auto emergency score of 5 from Travojevic, might not have been the worst decision to not do the vice captain loop. But yeah, overall, very, very a bit of an upset game for the Knights. A good game for them coming into the State of Origin period, where you would expect them to lose a few key players like Dan Savidi and Tyson Frizzell if he is fit to play. Well, that's it, guys. That is the roundup number 12. Hopefully you guys had a decent week. Let me know in the comments below as well what you scored, who your captain was. Definitely want to see how everyone performed this week, not predicted. As I said, I'm on 1,188 pre-updates. Hopefully I can crack the 1,200. That's definitely probably looking like a bit of a pass score. You know, I captained Cleary, so obviously a lot of people would have had that same problem as well with only him scoring an 80. But I think a lot of people might have done worse captaining Turbo. So if that was one of you, share the pain with me in the comments. We've all been there in the past, so you know, just let me know how you guys performed, and if you guys enjoyed the video, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and do please consider subscribing as well, as I'll put more videos out through the 2021 SuperCoach season. But until then, see you guys in the next video.